This thing's just flying. And you can tell he's got the brake lights are lit, nothing's happening. And it runs in to his jet skis and runs into all the stuff he had piled up over there. As a kid, I'm the youngest of four, so I got to see all my siblings drive before me and so forth, and being the car guy in the family, that was very depressing. I remember about 2003, 2004, my oldest sister, when the new Mini Cooper came out, that's what she wanted. Couldn't really make it happen, family financial wise, but we went out and test drove Mini Coopers when they first came out, the new generation Mini Cooper. My mom at the time, she wanted to appease my sister and take her to check out a Mini Cooper, so we went to the local BMW Mini dealer with some friends of ours and took out two Mini Coopers and test drove them. I think they were both the S models, the supercharged ones. When we went out with my buddy, he's a enthusiast driver, and he took us out and we did donuts and everything. I'm like 8, 9 years old, and I was just thoroughly impressed with the car. Like, we about had the inner wheel picked up off the ground doing donuts in the parking lot. I was hooked from there. I was like, these are such cool little cars. When they say handles like a go-kart, they're pretty on point with that. Now that I'm at the age where I can buy one, I started looking for one. And I really like convertibles. My first car was a convertible, so I wanted to find a convertible Mini Cooper. The S model, 6-speed, fun little car. And I'm looking for one, and I've run across a few, and nothing seems to make sense. I like to buy cheap cars. As a mechanic, I don't like to buy stuff that's perfect. I like to get a deal, buy something that needs some work. So I found this one a couple hours south of us. It was like, forget the name of the color, but it's kind of like their powder blue looking one. And the guy's like, the rear brake lines went out, but everything else is good. That's all it needs. So I'm like, it's 2 hours away. I'll start making a deal with this guy. We come to a number, and I ask him, hey, does the roof work? Does it do this, that, the other? The roofs sometimes have a problem, but one of my favorite things about it is you can use it as a sunroof or a full convertible. Just the front section of the top will go back. So you kind of get the best of both worlds there. He says, yeah, it works. I've had it for a few years as an older guy. And I'm like, great. So this is our number. I'll come pick it up. So I grab a buddy of mine. We rent a U-Haul trailer and we head that way. Once we get there, we go up to the car and we can immediately tell this thing is not what he represented. The pictures were from like 4 years ago when he purchased it, and the car just smells like mold. It's full of water. The roof doesn't work. When you start it up, the clutch barely works. You can barely get it rolling forward. Of course, the brakes don't work, which I already knew. So I go to the guy and I'm like, this doesn't make sense, like at any number. I was like, what we agreed was because of the condition you described it, so I can't buy this car. The guy, I think, had already started celebrating because you could smell it on his breath that he was getting rid of this car. And he becomes very upset. He's like, I thought this was a done deal, and now you're backing out on me. And I'm like, well, that's really just the reason, because it wasn't what you described. Like, we talked about this and you said it was this. I get here and it's not, so I can't do it. We had already rolled the car out of his garage and checked it out, knowing it had no brakes. You're an older guy, let me just put the car back in the garage for you. I'll put it away and we'll go about our day. And he's mad. So he's like, no, don't touch the car. I'm going to pull it in myself. Don't. Because I can smell on his breath. He's already been drinking. So I'm like, this isn't going to go well. We step aside and we're like, you're going to put it back. So he gets in the car, pulls the parking brake. Car starts rolling. He's trying to find a gear. So he finally finds reverse, and just the clutch just slipping so bad it sings to the moon, and then it stalls. And he can't stop it. And his driveway had just a little bit of slope on it, and it starts rolling and going towards, he had like a couple jet skis and a bunch of 2x4s and stuff. And we try and grab and hold on to it, but this thing's just flying. The brake lights are lit, nothing's happening, and it runs in to his jet skis and runs into all the stuff he had piled up over there. And he just stops and sits in the car, and he's just like staring into space. And we're like, sir, can we please push this car back into your garage for you? So we do, and he's kind of, I guess, sobered up at that point from the shock. And he's like, I'm real sorry, and just doesn't know what to say. We end up pushing the car back into the garage, and we're like, "Are you okay? Can we do anything?" He's like, "No, no, no." And we help him like pick up the jet skis and clean up. And I'm like, "I'm really sorry this happened, but I still can't buy the car." So off we went. I think it's been probably a year or so, and I still wanted the itch for the Mini Cooper convertible. And since we moved to a bigger shop now, I'm farther away. I've got about a 45-minute hour commute. Gas was getting real expensive, so I had a real reason to justify this purchase. Everything else I own gets like 14 miles a gallon, so I was like, this will be my commuter car. So I find one, and I'm picky. I want a certain spec, but I want it cheap, so they're not easy to find. So I find this one on Facebook. It's in Florida, and it's dark blue with a white stripe. It has the sport package. It has cold weather package with heated seats. It has the xenon lights. It has the Harman Kardon sound system. I was like, great. It has everything I want. So I make a deal with this guy, and he's like the total opposite of this other guy. He tells me everything is wrong with it. He takes a full video walking around it. He starts it up, tells me everything. I'm like, great. So I load up my truck and my brother-in-law in a U-Haul trailer, and off we go to Florida. We get down there without a hitch. We load up the car. Everything's great. Hand off the money, start driving back. And we're cruising like 70, 75 miles an hour. Got the trailer behind us. It's my little Dodge Dakota truck. I've had it forever. Great truck. It's a stick shift V8. Works for everything I need it to. We're cruising 70, 75. We stop for some barbecue in South Georgia, as befitting. Tell my brother-in-law, I'm like, you can start driving now. I'm getting tired, because I had driven the whole way since then. And we go, I don't think we make it 45 minutes. We're cruising. I'm just about to fall asleep. And I hear this like crunching, grinding noise. And I look at my brother-in-law, and he looks at me, and we're like, okay. We keep on going. About 30 seconds later, here comes the noise again, crunching, grinding. And then the truck stops moving forward. And I'm like looking at him. I'm like, what just happened? Like, we drove all this way. What'd you do? He's like, nothing, I promise. And we start coming to a stop, and we're trying to find any gear. It's not doing anything. It won't move. Come to a stop, and it's in neutral. The engine stalls, and I'm like, oh, that's not good. We kind of just sit there for a minute. We get out. As soon as you open the doors, the smell is horrendous. Just this baked, overheated gear oil smell. It's just terrible. But we get out, we look around. We don't see any leaks or anything. We're like 3 hours from Atlanta at this point. We're like, what do we do? And best decision, I'm like, let's just see what happens. So I went ahead and called my business partner. I said, hey, where's your truck? He said, oh, well, it's at the shop. And I'm like, just keep it on standby. He's like, what happened? I'm like, I don't know yet. So we start driving. I crank up the car. I mean, it makes god awful noises. All the grinding, crunching you can imagine. So I push the clutch in. I'm trying to find a gear. Nothing happens. And finally, what I figured out, if you start letting the clutch out, you can just barely get it into a gear. I could get second and fourth. I dump it in second and start driving off. And the noises this thing makes, like we can't even hear ourselves think. And so I get to second, I get to fourth, and we're just driving like 50, 55 miles an hour. Everyone's honking at us, passing us because they're doing 80 miles an hour. And this thing's just complaining about everything we tell it to do. But we can contain 50, 55 pretty easily. Now, if we put any kind of hill or anything, I have to actually like forcefully hold the car in gear, or it would pop out of gear and we'd be stuck again. And so we do that for a few more hours, and we're like, oh man, we're gonna make it. The closer and closer we get, the worse it is. We actually just stopped for fuel once. It was the same 10-minute debacle of trying to at least get it to pop into one gear. But we did, and we made it back safely to the shop. As soon as I get to the shop, I park it, and I'm like, well, now I need to move it and put it into a better spot. And it wouldn't move at all. It just completely quit. It was like stuck in first and reverse at the same time. So if you try to go backward, it would just sit in one place and not move at all. And of course, we still had the wonderful smell that whole 3.5 hours, that anytime we rolled down the window, even a fraction, you were just consumed with overcooked transmission fluid. Once we got to the shop, I knew it was time, and the truck needed a clutch for a while. It had kind of started to slip, and like some of the synchros were starting to make some noise. So like I kind of knew this was coming, but I figured I'd just run it till it quits. What ended up happening, I got a new transmission, and I always knew that the front seal on the transmission always leaked a little bit. Especially if I parked it nose down, it would dribble just a little bit. So I'm like, I want to see what this fluid looks like after we cooked it. So I pull the drain plug, nothing. Not even a drip came out of it. So that whole time we drove it to Florida and back, towing the Mini Cooper, it had no fluid in it. So, I mean, it was pretty robust if you look at it that way. It just goes to show, I guess my Mini Cooper ownership was not meant to be, as I still have issues with it too.
When you get a ticket, it might look something like this, but the first thing that you need to do is take a picture of that ticket and send it to 305 305. That will get the ticket clinic on your case immediately. They've got brick and mortar offices in Georgia, Florida, and California, but they can help you find a ticket no matter where you get it in the United States by helping you find a local attorney that will do everything they can to help you avoid costly fines, insurance premium increases, points on your license, risk of suspension, even jail time. They've helped me out with this ticket and many others, and a lot of my friends as well. So check them out now at the link in the description below, or again, text your ticket to 305 305 to get the ticket clinic on your case. They are the perfect partner in your fight against any speeding ticket.